What are some of the top pronunciation errors made by students who are learning Tibetan as non-native speakers? Hi, my name is Amalia. I have been learning Tibetan for 19 years. I speak multiple dialects, I work as an interpreter, and I teach Tibetan to students of Tibetan as a foreign language. If you like this video and think it's helpful, please do give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing, and I will try to continue making more fun, cool, and educational content. Okay, it's cool if you're a linguist, I guess, but whatever. Anyway, this also means, since I am a foreign learner of Tibetan myself, that these are errors that I have also had to struggle with and had to help my students struggle through. So I'm hoping that this video will help you, because these are some of the main issues that I find make the difference between a good Tibetan accent and a not so good Tibetan accent. Later, I'll be making a video about some of the more difficult letters to pronounce in the Tibetan alphabet, but this video is much more just about real pronunciation mistakes that I hear on a daily basis and how you can fix them to sound better. Of course, I should note that there are many different dialects of Tibetan. I speak a few of them myself, and this means that pronunciations differ depending on what dialect you're using. In my experience, most Tibetan as a foreign language learners are learning the central dialect, which could be the Lhasa dialect or the Xichao dialect spoken in, say, India and Nepal. So I'm going to be basing my commentary on those dialects. Of course, if you're learning Kham dialect, Amdo dialect, Drukpa dialect, take this with a grain of salt, but hopefully it will still be helpful to you. So are you ready for the 3 top mistakes made in Tibetan pronunciation by non-native learners? Let's go. Number 1, vowel clarity. A lot of languages, including languages like English and Russian, vowel sounds actually have multiple vowels within them. I'm going to use English as an example because I am, if you couldn't tell, a native English speaker. So let's take A and O, for example. When we say A and O, we're actually saying 2 vowels. Let's slow that down. A, E, A, O, 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 A, O. We're not saying E and O. We're saying A and O. That's multiple vowel sounds. And this exists in many languages, but not all of them. And it's not a big thing in Tibetan. In Tibetan, the vowels tend to be very, very crisp. A, E, O, U, E, U. And I will talk about the U and the U in the video about difficult sounds to make, don't worry. So one mistake that I hear very commonly is people will say ray, 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 instead of je for to be or there is. So they'll say like, oh, qu'on peut pas ray, instead of qu'on peut pas je. Or, oh, they'll say like low, low, instead of lo. So when they want to say like 1 year, instead of saying lo chick, they'll say low chick, low chick. So the best thing to do is really just practice that it's a, e, o, u, u. And again, just keep that really crisp, especially if you're going with central dialect. It's e, not I. So when we see chik1, it's not chick, it's chick. Again, there's different dialects, I understand, but we want to keep these vowels really, really crisp. And especially if you get this now in central dialect and later you're learning Amdo or Kham dialect, this is going to make your life so much easier. So keep those vowels crisp. We don't want A, O, we want E, O. If you can do that, honestly, that is one of the telltale indicators of a good accent in Tibetan, and it's an easy fix. Number 2, putting too much emphasis on the end consonant in a syllable. In English and in many other languages, when a consonant ends in a syllable, we give an extra breath at the end or even a little bit of an extra vowel. So we say cat, cat. It's almost cat-ta. Ham, 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 back, 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 okay? So I'm overemphasizing it here, but if you think about it, we say ham, cat, back. It's there. In Tibetan, it's not. Now, again, in some dialects, especially Amdo dialect, it is, but that is another issue for another time. I'll be happy to discuss that at another point in time. So for example, one thing I hear constantly is the phrase Tashi, which is used for hello. in many parts of like Tibetan language world. I say that because in Tibet, they don't really use it for hello. It's used more for congratulations. Anyway, that's an aside. I hear people say delek, Tashi delek. And the thing is, that definitely sounds weird because in Tibetan, it's Tashi delek. Tashi delek. It's not Tashi delek. Why? Because in Tibetan, when the consonant ends, it is done. When the syllable ends, it is finished. So what ends up happening is these sounds almost get swallowed. So a g sound at the end, like in delek, delek, what happens is my tongue, the back of my tongue is touching the roof of my mouth like I would for a g or k sound, but then it's just stopping. No further air is going through. Delek, delek. That's why it's often called a glottal stop instead of an actual G or K sound. The same is true for the other consonants as well. So lam, which means path, is not lum, lum. It's lum, lum. Same with the b sound. Cup. Cup means needle. Cup, cup. Not cup, cup, cup. It just finishes. Very short, and then it's done. So again, we hear people say, if they're not, as fluent in Tibetan or they're struggling with their accent, which is very reasonable, you'll hear cup, lam, delek. And all of these are real indicators that this is a non-native speaker, at least if you're speaking central dialect. So what do? Make sure that once that consonant ends the syllable is shut down. There is no more air coming out of your mouth. Lam, cup, delek. And as I said, this does depend on the dialect, but we're talking about central dialect here. Number 3, combinations with the R sound in them. Now, I'm going to talk more about the letter ja in the alphabet video, but I'll give a brief summary here. There are 2 primary ways to pronounce the Tibetan letter ja, which is often transliterated into English as the letter R. The first is primarily used in central dialect and Shichak dialects, which is ja, ja. In English, this is similar to the S in the word pleasure, ja, ja. In other languages, we could think of it as it's very similar to the J in French, like je suis Amalia, je. That's almost identical to the Tibetan ja. So that's number 1. Number 2 is a trilled, rolled, or tapped R, r, ra, ra, or ra, ra. Okay? That's like in Spanish, for example, Spanish, Mongolian, Thai, many other languages. Now, if you can't trill or tap your R, there are a few things you can do. One, you can always use that zh sound that exists in English, it exists in French, it's not hard to do. But also, if you want to cheat, if you really want to get that trilled or tapped R, that sound is more common in Eastern Tibet, then you can actually just kind of put in a D, da, da, da. It's a little cheat that I learned because I had some friends who couldn't roll their R's. Anyway, now that you have that, the real issue that comes up is there's a lot of sounds in Tibetan that combine that with a T or D sound, so TR or DR. Now, what happens is we get 2 mistakes on 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. We get them overpronounced, so people say drolma, drolma, or drolma, drolma, I've heard that several times. Or they get completely underpronounced. For example, the word Tashi in Tashi delek is actually a TR sound, but people say Tashi. They completely drop that. I think it's spelled without the R because otherwise it would look like trashy. And look, people have enough trouble saying Wangchuk without making it sound really bad if they're reading it from an English perspective. So I fully understand them not putting the R in there. And I have way too many friends who were bullied as kids. Kids are mean, oh my gosh. Anyway, back to the point. The actual sound is very small. So Tashi, Droma. How do we get this sound properly? So what you do is you want your tongue to be curved up, touching the roof of your mouth, that hard palate behind the teeth, about ½ centimeter back. I'm gonna see if I can show you. So now you say your T or D sound with your tongue in that position. Ta, ta, da, da, ta, da, ta, da. Okay, so I'm saying the T or D sound, except my tongue is like that. Okay, that's what's going on there. So it's Tashi, Droma. And the reason it's not Drolma is that thing we talked about earlier with the syllable. We kind of almost lose that last letter, Droma, droma, Tashi, droma, okay? So those are the 3 top errors made by non-native Tibetan speakers when they're learning to speak Tibetan. Super quick review. 1, keep your vowels crisp. We don't want a, e, o, we want a, e, o, u, u. Super crisp, 1 vowel only. Number 2, when a consonant ends a syllable, that syllable is done. We do not add extra air, we do not add extra vowels. So lam, not lam, cup, not cup, lick, not lick. And number 3, when you are pronouncing your R sounds, it can be a zh, like in pleasure, or zh in French, or a trilde tapped R, r. And then when you are doing it with a T or D sound to make that dr or tr sound, you just curl your tongue up, touch it to the top of your tongue, just a little ways back from your teeth, tr, dr, just like that. With these 3 tips, you will immensely improve your spoken Tibetan accent, and hopefully you're going to build some confidence in speaking in public. It takes a while to really master a language and really master an accent, but I really hope that this gives you the confidence to go out, speak Tibetan, make some friends, try learning Tibetan songs, have some fun. Language learning should be fun and should be confidence building. If this video was helpful to you, please do give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing. If you have any particular questions about Tibetan or any of the other languages that I know, please pop those questions into the comments, and I'm so excited to make more videos for you soon. Thank you, Tuchiche and Tashi delek.